Mr. Secretary, for being patient with us as we're all running around to go vote for this second round. So I want to go back to something that you and I talked about in our call earlier this week, and that is the importance of biofuels for Iowans. As we're looking at transportation of the future, I think that there's a real opportunity there with some innovative and promising new transportation technologies. So I just, first of all, want to say I encourage you to be prioritizing biofuels producers in those conversations. They're ready and willing to come to the table on those. They have a clean, renewable source of fuel for Americans and the world. We're seeing increased demand for that, as I have mentioned, in some other foreign countries, including Great Britain. So I just wanted to just ask quickly if you could share maybe some of your ideas for how we can work together to encourage the use of biofuels in many areas for a cleaner and more efficient way of transit.
Well, again, this is an example of where I think it pays off to consider not just the tailpipe or engine emissions, but the life cycle of our various fuel sources. And that story is very different for biofuels than it is for other petroleum-based fuels, even if they wind up going into the same tank of the same vehicle. And so we need to make sure that our data and our policy decisions reflect that. I'm very interested in the ongoing conversation about sustainable aviation fuels, because again, that seems to be an area with a lot of still to be discovered possibilities in terms of technology and certainly in terms of scale, and would welcome opportunities to work with Congress to explore more about how that might be relevant to work that's been done initially with more of a view to surface transportation in the biofuel sector. And I think we should continue to have conversations about what transitions look like too, knowing that everything from electricity generation to the fueling of passenger vehicles, locomotives, trucks, trains, and even ships is going through evolution on different paths for each mode. So would invite further conversation on this, and think it's a point well taken that those who have a lot riding on the future of biofuels need to be in these conversations and at the table.
Yeah, and I think with that point made, I would encourage you to work closely with Secretary Vilsack as well, another fellow Iowan who really understands, obviously, the importance of our agriculture producers and our biofuels producers that can really help us continue to fuel the world. One other issue that I wanted to touch on, the airport improvement program. It's huge for Iowa and our airports. Our small, rural, regional airports and municipal airports provide a critical point of access for my constituents, along with many Americans. So those AIP grants are essential for many of the smaller airports. So unfortunately, the skinny budget that we have doesn't really detail specific information on AIP. So I would just ask, are you expecting that the request for this program will be about the $3.3 billion authorized? Where are you expecting that to end up?
So wouldn't be able to predict numbers before the full release of the budget, but I will say that we recognize the value of the AIP program, and it's important to continue supporting our aviation infrastructure, even if it's not getting talked about as much as things like roads and bridges.
Well, I encourage you to keep an eye on that, and I look forward to working with you on that to continue to spotlight and make sure it gets the attention and the resources it deserves. So with that, Mr. Secretary, thank you, and Mr. Chair, I yield back.